Welcome everybody to Focus Real Estate's webinar on home buying. And really, I think there's a couple big obstacles that buyers face today, and we're going to be addressing those. Thank you everybody who's joining us. And if you don't mind making some comments in the chat, just to let us kind of know where you're at, what your time frame is looking like in that, so we can kind of address that for you, so we can kind of put together some idea of who we are chatting with today. We will certainly be addressing the two obstacles, but we'll also want to tailor our presentation to you as well. Excuse me for one moment here. All right. And we are live on Facebook as well. And Mr. Larry, if you want to work with Mr. Eric on how to figure that out to make sure it's on our Focus business page, that would be terrific. So here we are. Welcome, everybody. Again, to say welcome. And we're going to be looking at the two biggest obstacles in home buying today. My name is Randall Engelman. I am the team leader and owner of Focus Real Estate. And today we have our presenter with us, Mark and Jamie. If you don't mind forwarding the slide and there we go. And do a little introductions for yourself. Jamie?
Yeah, thank you, Randall. So like he just said, my name is Jamie Burgoyne. I am one of the agents here at Focus Real Estate. And I know one of the main things we wanted to hit on today was, honestly, the market has been hard. Like, it's really sucked over the last year or two. And we want to add value to you. We want to make you feel confident going into this marketplace as a buyer. And that's one of the things we at Focus really want to do for you. We want to make you feel happy and confident and have fun throughout this entire process. So hopefully this helps.
That's right. And hey, everyone, my name is Mark Crespi. And I just wanted to echo what Jamie said. We're not here to sugarcoat it. It's not easy for buyers right now. Unless you've been living under a rock, you understand that it's really difficult over the past few years to be a buyer. And we frankly wouldn't be having this webinar if it wasn't difficult. So what we really want to do is give you some great takeaways and give you some confidence moving forward.
Great. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Mark. And what we're going to be going over today, just a quick little outline so you know what to expect. Looking at obstacle number one and defining what that is. Looking at obstacle number two, overcoming these. The big question then is this a good time to buy? So we'll address that as well. And also, why work with a buyer's agent? What kind of value does working with a real estate agent and a buyer's agent that represents you in a transaction, what value does that bring with you, and why should you do that?
All right, so we're going to start with obstacle one, which is low inventory. So all of you watching right now are probably buyers or going to be buyers in the very near future. And I'm sure you all are aware that inventory is pretty low. But the question is, how do we measure inventory, and what do we really mean by that? So when we measure inventory, we do it in months supply. And by that, what we do is we take the amount of inventory in any given area and we say, how long would it take for the market to absorb all this inventory, all these houses, and make them go away? Really, how long will it take for everyone to buy these homes? And in what we call a balanced market would be about 5 to 6 months worth of supply out there. Anything more than that would be a buyer's market, right? So buyers would have their options and very easy for them. But anything less than that would be a seller's market. So here we're looking at just a nationwide graph over the past 10 years of month supply of inventory. And as you can see, it's gone down. So we're sitting at probably between 2 and 2.5 months worth of inventory in the US itself. Now breaking that down to Boston itself, as you can see, we're sitting a little lower just in Boston. The red graph is single families, the blue graph is condos. So single families are even tighter, probably about 1 month of inventory. And this is for several reasons here, one of which is the obvious, with COVID-19 being able to work from home for many people. They don't have to live in the city close to their jobs anymore. Another big thing is the millennials. We are all kind of entering into the housing market, getting to that age where we're ready to start having a family and expanding our living situation. So several factors are tied into that, but as you can see, it's pretty difficult out there.
Yes. And going from that kind of difficult perspective, how does that impact you as a buyer? We've been in a seller's market for just about the last decade. And what that does is really amps up the competition. I'm not sure if any of you were driving around last year and saw the lines at some of the open houses. All that does is create and show how much competition is out there in the market and how many buyers want the same house that you want. And again, this entire presentation is not to scare you, but I don't want you going to an open house this year and going, oh my God, Jamie, there are 30 people in front of me in this line. What do I do? Do I even try? The answer is yes, you continue to try, but just you need to be aware going into it so you don't get too scared going up to that house. You have just as much of a right to be there as anybody else.
And I'll point out that in that last slide that you just started on there, Jamie, that was a picture one of you guys sent to me from open houses this new year. So that is a line of people waiting to get in an open house. So don't be shocked by that. Sorry to interrupt you there.
No, it actually helps. So the next thing I was going to go into is that we are starting early this year. I think that there's this notion that the spring market, the busy time of the year, starts in May or starts in March, but we're really seeing that happen now in February, in January. And it's not easy, right? It's hard, and it creates things like multiple offer situations, bidding wars, really things that can make you balk as a buyer. What we try to do and what we're going to do kind of going into these next slides is show you how to overcome those things. But just so you know, this is the reality of the situation going into this market. Like I said, now let's get into overcoming the obstacles. What do? Do you just never buy a house?
I mean, some people, but that's really not what we're here for. So a couple of things we do here just to help you out in such a crazy market. One of which is we look for private sales. So what is a private sale? Pretty self-explanatory. It's a home that may not go on the public market, not go on MLS, get spiderwebbed out to all those other websites and have the traditional open houses, offer due dates, things like that. There are some sellers out there that don't want a lot of foot traffic in their house, especially with the COVID pandemic. They don't want herds of people in there. So we use our network to look for sellers that may want to just do something privately and get it over quickly.
Mm-hmm. Another thing we do is we reach out to neighbors. We reach out to entire neighborhoods. This is actually something I did with a couple of my buyers last year. So we had put in multiple offer after multiple offer, and it was tough. We could not get an offer accepted just because they were looking at a single family house in Jamaica Plain, and there were 20 offers on every single house we submitted an offer for. And so what we did then from that is those buyers really identified where they wanted to live. They gave me streets, they gave me an entire neighborhood. And I went out and I knocked on every single one of those doors. I looked at the stats of each houses online, and I asked the sellers, would you be willing to sell your house? Would you be willing to even have a conversation about it? Is there a number that would make you move this year? And they did end up getting placed this last fall, this last spring. So it works. It's just, you have to sometimes go in the back end and find something else to really get you placed.
You guys just don't sit and wait for things to come on MLS. That's not your thing.
Sometimes it just doesn't work. If you're in such a competitive market, you have to think of something else that works.
Yeah. And everybody's situation is different. Some people are looking for something that doesn't have as much competition.
Right.
Some people are able to wait. So it really depends on your personal situation.
Mm-hmm.
But these are just examples of things we've done for buyers in the past and will continue to do in the future to really get you what you want.
Right. If there's a will, there is a way to figure it out.
So another thing we do is just use our network to connect with other agents. So here at Focus, we have what we call the Priority Access Program, and that is a list that we compile of properties of sellers that we know that may want to sell in the private market.
Mm-hmm.
We compare and contrast these together and kind of try and link buyers together.
Mm-hmm.
We know that other brokers may do the same thing as well. So we really use our network to reach out to others when we have buyers that are in a need like you, to try and get that going, even if someone in our office doesn't have what you're looking for.
Right. Another thing we do is what I call the brown nosing checklist. So every single person, and it's one of the things we especially do in our office, is we reach out to basically every single agent in an area when we're searching for a home for you. And once we've identified a home, we immediately call that seller's agent. We ask them what the sellers are looking for. We ask them if there's anything we could do to make this deal a little bit sweeter for them, to make this deal a little bit easier for them. That way, going in, they're going to be a little bit more likely to want to work with you and want to work with us moving forward. So it's really, you need to hit it from all sides. The offer needs to be good, and you need to make sure that they think that you're going to be good to work with.
Right. And it's important just to have that relationship with other agents
Yes.
around here anyway. I mean, we at Focus do so many transactions around here. We really know the other agents pretty well.
Right.
And it's important to keep a good relationship with them because you're likely going to be doing transactions with them again.
Right. Yeah. And you want to make it a positive experience for everyone moving forward if you possibly can.
So that is a quick little outline of those couple obstacles. Does anybody that's attending, any of our attendees today, have any questions that they'd like to ask at this point, or any other obstacles that you'd like to see us address really quickly before we move on? Go ahead and throw that in the chat section and we can address that for you.
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. And then we can start chatting about the time to buy here. So will the inventory get any better? Who would like to address that? Address our inventory issue.
Would you like to?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously cyclical, but we're in the stage right now where we see really low inventory, and there's several reasons for that. I mean, the interest rates are at an all-time low right now, so it's really incentivizing people to buy and giving you more money to put towards the purchase of your home rather than in the hands of the bank. So, you know, when interest rates, if they do go up at some point, you know, inventory may go down a little bit, but it's really, it's a matter of people wanting to actually move out of their homes and being able to build enough homes for all the new generation to move in. So, I mean, the answer is it's not going to happen overnight.
Right. Another thing I would say is that just this year, when we're looking at kind of January to December, things are a little bit slow this particular time of the year in terms of inventory on the market. As we get further into May, March, you know, as we get further into July, June, you're going to see more houses come on the market, but we're still most likely going to be in a seller's market. So there's still going to be more demands for those houses than there are houses to buy. So the answer, I guess the quick answer is that there's going to be more inventory later on this year than there currently is right now. But that may not necessarily change the balancing act that the market is in right now in the favor of sellers.
Yeah, and addressing that a little bit to myself from some experience in the great Boston winters is that a lot of sellers are very reluctant this time of the year to put their houses on the market. And the reason is because look at the snowstorm we got last weekend. That was a killer, right? So they tend to spend a little bit more time waiting it out until they know the weather is going to get a little bit better. And also, we all got to agree, right? I mean, houses look better in the springtime when the flowers are blooming and the trees are budding. But around here in Boston, you're talking about May. So they usually don't wait that long, but until the threat of serious storm is over, we typically see a very, very slim pickings for inventory. So yeah, so thanks for that, guys. Let's see here. Do we expect to see this low this spring? Again, kind of inventory the number of houses available will get more, but like you guys both said, you know, we're really looking at inventory, the demand being strong enough to strip the inventory pretty quickly as it comes on. So what does that mean? You got to act pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you got to be prepared to make that move.
Exactly. To give you a timeline of, you know, when properties come on the market in the Boston area, typically in the high kind of demand season of the spring, they're on for a week, if that. So just like Randall said, because competition is so high, because inventory is so low, because we're still in a seller's market, you're going to have to act fast when you see a home that you really love. So saying it's going to be on a week is maybe even sometimes an overestimation of how long it might be on the market.
So we have another question here from Christina. Christina was asking, how frequently are houses sold without listing on MLS? And I'm trying to do a quick little inventory in my head, how many transactions happened in 2021 and our team that didn't go to MLS. I think there was about,
We had one
I'd
together.
say between 10 and 15% of mine were off the market from last year.
oh, really? That high? Because
Yes.
it's very interesting when you start searching MLS to see what sold, at least in a lot in single families. You don't see a lot that doesn't sold. And I actually have to say our office does a lot of sales. Like
Well, that's the great thing about being on a team too. You know, we are all independent agents. We work by ourselves with our buyers and sellers, but we also communicate as a team very
every
well
single day.
every day. And we are always in kind of conversation of who's got what listing coming on.
Right.
So we work very closely together,
Mhm.
even if we may not work, you know, as partners.
Right.
So that's the great part of it.
Mhm.
And because of that, we do a lot of private sales just in the office.
Right. I mean, even Mark and I had a private sale last year. I had some buyers who were looking, and Mark hadn't come to market with his listing yet. And we got him through beforehand and got it sold before it needed to.
Yeah. This particular one, it was a landlord, and
Right.
he had some tenants living in there, and he had like many months before the tenancy, you know, the lease was
Ended.
up.
Yeah.
And that we were able to lock in that sale so that Jamie's buyer could move in as soon as September 1st came. So
Right.
that was great.
As soon as the tenancy agreement was up.
It's a really satisfying experience, having been on those sides myself, matching people off the market. It can be really fun for people. It's a little easier transaction, as you were saying earlier, Mark. And it can really be a win-win for both the buyer and the seller of the property. So it's something that we really enjoy doing, and something to really look into. So
More like Matt.
that question, Christina. Got another new one here. You're welcome. If there's no other questions, we'll go ahead and move along. So Jamie, take it away.
Yep. So getting in back to our list of things to discuss, is now a good time to buy? And I'm going to give you the answer you don't want to hear, and then Mark's going to give you the answer you probably might want to hear after that. Whether it's a good time to buy is really focused on what your goal is. So if you're looking to move in the next, 5 months, 10 months, 1 year, then maybe renting makes a little bit more sense for your lifestyle, makes a little bit more sense in terms of the flexibility that you'll need moving forward. If you're looking to set down roots, if you're looking to create a community, if you're looking to build your wealth and your equity in a home, then buying a house would probably make a little bit more sense to you. But I think the question that this is really geared towards is the market conducive to you buying a home? And does that make it a good time or a bad time to buy?
Right. And, it's really circumstantial, like you said, but here's just some cold facts in front of you. This is the percentage of homeownership rates in the US. And according to the herd mentality, the answer is yes, because all these people want to buy. So as you can see in 2020, it really spiked up. Really from 2016, people started getting into home ownership more and more. But 2020, for obvious reasons, like we said before, pandemic, work from home, millennials, and the interest rates being so low, it was kind of a perfect storm for everybody to really get that light bulb on their head and say, it's time for me to get into the housing market. So, speaking of interest rates, here is just a graph over the past, since
the 80s.
Since 71, I can't do that. But these are just the interest rates. And as you can see, they've been going down and down to the point where we're at an all-time low. And really, what does this mean for you as a buyer? Yes, you're paying less interest, but really it means that when you're getting pre-approved and you make X amount of money, if you have a smaller interest rate, that means you can afford more.
Right.
The mortgage lender will tell you can afford, 800,000 when, a year ago, if the interest rates are higher, you may be able to afford 750.
Right.
So that's really what's exciting about having such low interest rates is what you make is, you can afford a more expensive house.
Right. So lower interest rate equals higher buying power.
Well said.
Thank you. Moving forward, so looking at projected interest rates for this year. So last year they were at an all-time low. This year they're a little bit higher than they were last year, but they're still much lower than they were in the 70s.
Oh my gosh. I was like my parents, when they bought the house before I was around, they paid 18% interest rate, and it was just the going rate.
Exactly. So 18 versus what we're looking at right now, around 3.5. I would say that the interest rates have gotten better. We are still at a low. That's not to say that we're going to continue being this low though. So it's projected that it's going to get up to maybe around 3.84% by the end of this year. But what does that mean for you as a buyer? So looking at this, we created this little graph just to make it a little bit more easy to understand how that interest rate really affects your buying power. So if you look at this little table, we have, let's say you're getting a mortgage for $800K. Right now, you may be able to get an interest rate of 3.5%, which makes your monthly payment, what, $3,592.36. But if we go into Q4 of this year, and let's say that you have a 4% interest rate, so just a 0.5% more, you're going to be paying just over $200 more each month, which may not seem like a lot, but going into the lifetime of a loan. So a typical mortgage is about a 30-year loan. So take that $200 and multiply that by 360 days, and you end up getting just about $80K in difference of what you're paying over the lifetime of this loan. So it may not seem like a big amount, but I mean, $80,000 is a lot of money, no matter how much you slice it or dice it. So this is the difference that we're talking about, which is why, you know, while the rates are low, you really want to take advantage of that.
Right. Well said. And I mean,
So
I
when-
do it a month.
Yeah.
When the interest rates grow up, doesn't that just mean that the property prices will go down?
That would be nice. It would really be lovely.
No, they're not directly correlated, unfortunately.
No.
You know, especially with the demand still being the way it is. You know, the buyers kind of determine the prices of homes. And while the inventory is still low, that means that unfortunately the prices of homes will probably keep going up.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting when you watch the headlines, right? So I remember a couple of years ago when the market started taking a little bit of a sideways turn, and there was a lot of headlines about, and Mark, this is going to go directly back to what you were talking about with months supply of inventory and what we would call also an absorption rate. And they're like, the inventory has come way up in the United States. We went up from having a month and a half's worth of inventory to 2 months worth of inventory, which still signifies an outrageous seller's market. So those little tiny fluctuations, although the news may make a big deal about them, often don't translate into what buyers think the sky is falling and the prices are dropping. So just kind of watch your news, because they like to make a big deal out of stuff. So.
Moving forward, so looking at mortgages, looking at mortgage rates, we as real estate agents can give you a good amount of information, but quite honestly, the best person to talk about a mortgage with is a mortgage broker. They'll do a lot better of a job in explaining your personal financial situation, what makes the most sense for you, what you can afford. And even, I know Mark and I really talk about, we like it when buyers talk to a mortgage broker so much sooner than the time that they need to buy. And it doesn't mean that you need to get a pre-approval before you're ready to buy, but having that conversation can really help you understand, you know, how to build your credit, how to improve the rate you're going to be getting when you're ready to buy, you know, and it's really just beneficial for you as a buyer to have that conversation as early as you possibly can.
Right. And, you know, touching upon what you're saying about being ready to buy, an example of this is a couple of weeks ago, I have a buyer who said, Mark, like, you know, I can't wait to buy my next home, but I can't buy it until March. I said, why? She said, because I'm getting a huge bonus for work and I'm going to use that money as my down payment. And I said, okay, cool. But, you know, you already own a home right now. So have you thought about using the equity for your home as taking out a loan for the equity of your home to use that as a buffer time between now and March?
A HELOC.
And a HELOC, exactly. Home equity line of credit. And she didn't know what that was and was very interested. So she spoke to her mortgage lender, who told her, yes, that's possible. Long story short, she has the money right now. And we're seeing a house tomorrow.
Right.
And when her bonus comes from work in March, she can pay that loan off right away. So she's not really paying much interest on it.
Right.
But she didn't even know that she was able to get into the housing market right now. She thought she was going to have to wait until March.
Right.
So there are options for you out there that you may not even know of. That's why it's so important to speak to us and to speak with your lender.
Right. And we're more than happy to sit down with you if you're interested to just have a really quick conversation about what would make the most sense for you, what questions you may have, anything that we can brainstorm with you, and then refer you out to a person that may be able to give you an even better answer than we were able to do so as well.
Right.
All right. So why work with a buyer's agent? We just unlock a door and show you a house and say, voila,
Yeah.
you're welcome.
Just a pretty face. Well, that, and I mean, we have great reasons to work with it.
That,
So why don't you take this away, Jamie?
You have sprains and you have brawn. Okay, so the number one reason, or my number one reason, one of my favorite parts of my job is the fact that I get to be your project manager. So more likely than not, every single one of you has a day job. You have a home life, you have things that you need to do throughout your day, and you don't have time to call the seller's agent. You don't have time to find an attorney or a mortgage broker or a home inspector. That's my job. So we get to take all of that off of your plate. We get to say, have fun, congratulations, you have an offer accepted. Now let me create the schedule. Let me coordinate with everybody. Let me make sure that we stay on track and that schedule is adhered to. And then at the very end, I get to give you a bottle of champagne and some keys. And it was the easiest transaction. And you think that I did nothing.
Right.
And it's great.
And that's what we want you really to feel like, is that nothing happened.
Mhm.
And we're there to give you representation. So in the state of Massachusetts, unless otherwise specified, an agent is there to represent the seller. Right. So when you go to an open house and you speak to the agent with a smile on their face and they're asking you all these questions, they're really asking you questions so that they can relate to the seller.
Right. They're brown nosing.
So
every
if you were to
single
place
one
an
of
offer,
us.
right, they're going to know things about you.
Mhm.
So it's important to have your own representation so
Right.
that we can really be there to represent you and, answer all the questions that you have and to make sure that it doesn't get too far into the hands of the seller.
Right. Things like, how much you can afford, why you need to move. Maybe you need to move because of a job and you only have a specific timeline. Maybe you need to move because you're expanding your family. And guess what? You need to be in a new house before that baby comes. All of those things take away your power and your negotiating power as a buyer going into it, if you have any, right?
Right.
We
Or
just
maybe
talked
you're
about it.
maybe you're pre-approved for X amount and this
Right.
house is a lot
Lower than
lower,
that.
right? But
Yeah.
you don't want the seller to know exactly how much you're pre-approved for. So
Exactly.
we make sure to keep that between us.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads us into number 3.
Mhm.
Well, not really, but we have fiduciary duties as real estate agents. There's 6 of them actually. And confidentiality is one of them, which is a really important thing to have between you and your agent so that they can represent you in the best way possible.
Right.
Another one is reasonable skill and care, which leads us to number 3 here. And what that means is that we are licensed real estate agents, but we're not attorneys. We're not contractors. We're not, plumbers,
It's
but
the
we know.
stay in your lane rule.
Right. And our job is to, if you ask us some questions that may be beyond our scope of knowledge, we can't BS the answer for you. We want to make sure it gets in the hands of the proper person.
Right.
And we don't expect you to know a mortgage lender and an attorney and, a home inspector. That's our job. Going back to what Jamie said, it's our job to make sure that all these people are in your sphere.
Right.
So that you can do less work.
Exactly. The whole point of this is to create a team that works for you. That way you have even less to worry about. You can feel confident and safe moving forward in this process, that you have a plethora of people behind you really helping you along the way that are on your side. Another thing that's really nice is that you as a buyer don't have to pay for buyer's representation. That's something that is agreed with between the seller and the seller's agent on the hind end. And once this house closes, we get paid.
Right. So you're not coughing up money just to have representation. If you go without a buyer's agent, you're still not coughing up money. So you may as well do it for free.
Yeah.
We also,
That's very practical, Mark.
Very practical.
You're not losing anything.
And we're local experts, and that's not just, we don't just mean that in the sense that we know the neighborhoods. We do, but it's also goes back to examples that we've given where we've helped our clients and they didn't even know that they had options. We're experts not only in the neighborhood itself, but in the transactions themselves.
Right. And we can also, just like we were talking about before, we can really help you create a game plan moving forward, whether that's writing the most competitive offer or, negotiating your home inspection if you get to have a home inspection, and really kind of making things as understandable and easy for you as humanly possible, and talking to you about those options that you have. So looking at making the most competitive offer, there are things like, your contingencies, understanding what those contingencies are. Do you feel comfortable dropping them? Do you not feel comfortable dropping them? Are there ways around it? Can you do a home inspection before you submit your offer? That way you can drop your home inspection contingency. So there's a lot of options. There's a lot of things to make you as a buyer feel like you have a little bit of power when you submit that offer, instead of giving, the keys to your life and your car and your womb and everything away once you get an offer accepted for that house.
Right. And I think a common misconception is that like price is the only thing that matters,
Right.
and everyone has to drop home inspection. That's not always true. And, we're here to give you the small tricks that we have.
Right.
And we don't expect you to know a mortgage lender and an attorney and, a home inspector. That's our job. Going back to what Jamie said, it's our job to make sure that all these people are in your sphere,
Right.
so
part
that
of
you
your
can do
team.
less work.
Exactly. The whole point of this is create a team that works for you. That way you have even less.
Sorry.
Is there a technical difficulty with that? That was funny.
Anyway.
All right. So going
Hope we didn't lose
back.
you too much.
Yeah, hopefully that didn't give you a seizure.
I don't know what I sound like recorded.
I know, it gave me a seizure. So everyone's all right here. Moving forward. So after all of the reasons you should work with us, we didn't list it before as one of the main obstacles to buying a home, but it would be kind of undue of us not to mention that COVID is still a big concern for people. It's still something that you may see as an obstacle to buying a home. And we just wanted to give you the reassurance that, we've had to find ways around it over the last couple of years. And we've had to find ways to make everybody feel as comfortable as humanly possible. If that means, sectioning out open houses, if that means instead of you coming to a very populated open house, I go and I FaceTime you while I'm there. I actually had to do this for clients maybe last year who lived out of state, who couldn't come and visit houses and look at them with me. So I had clients from Florida, clients from Alabama, from Georgia, who needed to buy houses, who needed to come up, but they couldn't get here. And so we went through the entire process virtually. I showed them around every single one of those homes. They placed their offers, got them accepted, and didn't walk into that house and see it in person until the day of closing. And somehow I'm still friends with every single one of them. So it went well.
Against all odds.
Against all odds, they still like me. So there are ways to make you feel comfortable, and there are ways to really make sure that this process works for you no matter what your situation is.
And experience matters. And that's really what we hope we can deliver to you right now. And this over here, the little map, I'm sure you can guess these are all the sales that we at Focus have made just in the past year in 2021. And we don't throw all these on the map just to brag about how many sales we've made. It's really to show you that with all the experience that we have, that comes with knowledge and just a lot of tricks that we've developed to write you the best offer, to represent you as well as possible, and to do for you what we've done for all these people on the maps, which is get you a home.
Right. And even though was a hard buyer's market, even though it's still a hard buyer's market, we're still getting offers accepted. We're still seeing transactions through, and we're still having happy clients at the very end of it. So there's a way to make this happen for you. You just need to work with us and know the tricks of the trade.
And have some patience too.
And have some patience. Exactly.
Thank you, guys. I just kind of want to ask and see if anybody has any additional questions that we might be able to answer as we near the end of our presentation today. Thanks for everybody that has joined us and submitted questions along the way. But if there's any way we can answer some questions before we go ahead and type them in the chat. Jamie and Mark, it has actually been fun watching watching you guys with clients, because it's interesting to watch and see how everything transpires through a transaction and how you're able to help people through all of those kind of pain points. And of course, like the map had shown, having that experience and knowledge and working knowledge of the market when you're selling 30 homes a year just on your own, plus all of the benefit you have working with a team that's selling 100 homes a year total. There's a lot of mind trust there. There's a lot of information or brain trust that we can really rely on one another. I get a phone call nearly every day from one of the agents in the office, like, this is new. And I'm like, yep, but we've seen it before. And this is what we do with that situation. And that's what's really fun. That's what's really fun about working with you guys and working with the team, and working with people that collaborate and work together. I think that collaboration is just so very important. Got a couple questions rolling in. Aside from waiving contingencies, what else can you do to stand out to a seller when there's multiple offers? What are the tricks to getting an offer accepted without dropping the contingencies?
Right. So this is semi my brown nosing rule, but also there are other tricks that we can do as well. So not only, so we go through the whole process of talking to the seller's agent, but seeing, if they want a quicker timeline. If you can facilitate a faster close, typically sellers really appreciate that. To give you a good idea, an average timeline from offer acceptance to the closing of the house is about 60 days. If you can move that up at all, that's always very helpful. Sometimes sellers also need a rent back. Sometimes they can't.
Yeah, the rent backs are a big deal.
Yeah, sometimes they can't move out of the house until after closing. So giving them a rent back, which means that they're allowed basically to stay in the house past closing, can be very helpful as well, and really facilitates them accepting your offer, even though you may have contingencies that other people don't. There's also things like a pre-inspection. And a pre-inspection is when you have a home inspection before you even submit your offer. So you get all the information about the house, you submit your offer, and then it allows you to drop that home inspection contingency because you already know everything. You already know whatever issue the houses have, and you can move forward from there.
Right. And in addition to that, you could still, another option is to offer deductibles,
right,
which a lot of people don't even know exists. So you can place an offer and say, I want to have a home inspection,
right,
but I'm willing to accept that this house may not be perfect. And if it's, its imperfections go up to a certain amount, I will not back out. I promise to move forward. For example, we'll say $10,000. You'll give a $10,000 deductible. So if the home inspector comes and gives you some line items of things that need to be taken care of in the home once you move in, if this adds up to less than $10,000, you're saying, I'm going to move forward anyway.
Right.
So that's a way.
Really, what sellers want, they want it to be easy, right? So when it comes to home inspections, they don't really want to come in and deal with anything else. I heard of an offer getting accepted just because of the fact that the buyer said, all that stuff in the basement, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Get out of your house. I'll take it. What you don't want, leave behind. I'll hire a junk hauler and get rid of it. The seller was like, I'll take less money to take that offer. Or I'll be willing to work with them if they're willing to work with me to help me get me out. So do all houses sell over the asking price? That is another question.
Not
No.
always.
Not always.
No.
I mean, it's the listing price is really just an invitation to get people in.
Right.
And that's up to the seller and the seller's agent to really determine what they want as a listing price. And there are really different ways to list a home. There's some homes that, it's the less people may want it. So you may list it higher knowing that it's going to take a little while to sell.
Right.
In that case, you may say, I want $1 million for it, but I know it's probably going to take a couple months to sell. So I'm going to list it for 1.1, hoping that someone offers a little lower. So, the short of it is no, they don't all go over asking, and it really depends on how you price it.
And it depends on what kind of property it is as well. So a lot of times single families are very sought after. So you'll see more competition for those. Other places may sit on the market for a while, or they may have something that, was slightly less desirable at that time. So they've been on the market for, 30 days, for 60 days, for 100 days. And in that, you have a little bit more kind of invitation and potentially more wiggle room to get a little bit lower. So it's really case by case. It's really situational. But the easy answer is no, not every single house goes over asking.
Fair enough. Yeah, it really does depend on the property. It depends on the condition. One of my favorite things to tell people when I'm working with when I was working with buyers is like, hey, look at the houses with all the ugly photos. Go and see that house. You might be surprised. It might be a lazy real estate agent that doesn't want to hire, or a cheap one that doesn't want to hire a professional photographer. Go and check those out, because those can often be hidden gems. Many times not, but when you're looking, you're looking. So,
Yeah.
so always different strategies to use with different people, different property types, all of that stuff. So thanks, guys. And that is all of our questions. Thank you, everybody, for those. And so really next steps here is really just determine what's the best decision for you. Are you ready to make that jump? Get into home ownership, start building your own equity and wealth in your life, and schedule a consultation. I know this seems rather thorough, but there's so much to go over, from timelines to the different paperwork that we can help you navigate and take a look at before you sit down or before you start writing offers, so you kind of know what you're doing ahead of time, and also putting your team together. I think Jamie and Mark can both really help you put a team together, from attorneys and mortgage brokers and home inspectors, to make sure that you're ready, because you never know when that perfect house is going to jump on the market, that perfect place. It's very sporadic. You never know what comes on. We even sit at the edge of our seats, don't we, everybody, on Wednesdays waiting for our caravan list?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I was so excited this morning that I thought it was today, and I was upset.
See what the new listings are that are coming out this week. So I do want to say thank you. If you guys would like to do the same, thank you for joining us here tonight, and feel free to reach out, and we'll be following up as well. Thanks for attending, and if there's any way we can help you out, please feel free to ask.
Yeah, just let us know. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.